Hi everyone, Joe March here, also known as Sorcerer, and today I'd like to talk to you about creativity and the occult. The idea for this topic comes from a subscriber comment, basically asking me if I'd seen any relationship between the occult and my work as an author and as a creator of a role-playing game. For years in my past, I wanted to be an author and game designer. Since then, I've written the book I wanted to write and created the game I wanted to create, and after doing so, I kinda lost all interest in writing and designing games in general. I've also found myself losing interest in running games as well. As much as I love what I wrote and what I created and would think that other people would have a lot of fun with it, it turns out these were methods of expressing myself, not actual joys of the craft. I didn't really know how to be who I was or know who I was when I first started writing this stuff, so I wrote fantasy to help me find myself. I didn't know that at the time, but it became clear over time that this was a method of me unraveling the truths about my inner self. In the past, I also didn't really know how to bring others into my world or my headspace, so I ran games set in a world setting that made sense to me, and that eventually became the system that I built as well. But in doing so, I learned how to do these things without fantasy, and found who I really was. I met friends who understand the real me, I pushed the boundaries of who I saw myself as, and I found love and acceptance among family and friends. So these crutches are not really needed by me anymore, though they have left me with some skills that have transferred into other things in life. They've also left me better able to empathize with others and to see myself from outside points of view. More than anything else, I've learned to use what Carl Jung calls the active imagination to work with the unconscious and aspire toward individuation through methods taught in the occult. But these methods come naturally to me because I've learned to work through who I am in art, music, writing, and the imagination. This is why I feel like anyone who wants to engage in art, music, or writing is going to have a better time finding themselves, understanding themselves, and going through these processes in the occult. If I hadn't spent my time writing my book and designing my game and completing those entirely, I wouldn't have been able to understand myself as fully through those works. Now, it's important to be careful not to escape too much from reality into these works. That's something that is tempting and that will happen from time to time. There are points in our life where escapism is a valuable tool in order to help us get through something tough, but eventually we have to let that go, and that process can be painful. This is why, for me, learning about occult processes and starting to look at things in a metaphorical sense actually helped me to not get pulled into this part of fiction where you end up using it as an escape and not as a tool to better yourself. By pairing my work with my time in the occult, I was able to transform myself through understanding what I was feeling and what was causing me to put down what I was putting down on the page. By analyzing the way that I design a system, I'm able to analyze the way that I see the world and then question it. All of these things make you a better person so long as you're able to flip it on its head, so to speak, and you're not just stuck using it as a shield or armor. In the end, it turned out my long-held drive to become an author and design my own game were really desires to find myself and my place in this world. This is why writing anything other than what I wanted to write didn't fill me with satisfaction, and making games for other settings was uninteresting. It was always about getting to the end of that journey to learn what world and story I wanted to tell. And that's the difference between me and a professional author, someone who writes for the love of writing or creates for the love of creating. That is not who I am. It's more self-expression. It's more understanding the self. The goal in writing for me, though I didn't know it at the time, was always to figure out who the storyteller was. The creative effort I used to put into writing fiction is now used in the work in my own journal, my private work toward bettering the self, transformation, the goals of most occultists. It is a different process in that you have to open the imagination and let it go where it goes instead of directing it. It's very different than writing for a story. But again, I would specify, if you were interested in that, to look into how Carl Jung talks about active imagination to understand the difference between imagination and active imagination. I still enjoy role-playing, as in playing tabletop role-playing games and the like, but a big part of what I like about that is getting into the mind space of another person. Not for reasons of escape so much as to push my own boundaries and see what it's like to feel like being someone who's different than me, and how that ends up coming back around to showing me things about myself. I think role-playing games like this are extremely useful in helping us to push our own boundaries and discover things in a safe environment. But I don't really feel the need to run the games anymore or have them set in my setting, whereas it used to be kind of a control thing. The world outside felt scary and outside of my control, and I needed a space where I felt safe. And that has changed thanks to me finding myself, finding my friends, finding my family, etc. Finding that space where I feel comfortable being me here in this world got rid of the need for me to run and control a world of my own. Now, does this mean that I think if you still use fiction and roleplay and things of that nature in order to feel in control or in order to escape, that that's a bad thing? Not necessarily. I think we all go through periods in time where we need to be able to find a space to be ourselves and where our current experience isn't allowing for that. And these are great tools to let you do that. They can also be an excellent way to find other like-minded people who are going through the same type of shit and to build lifelong friendships. Even long after you all don't need these tools in order to feel in control anymore, you'll still find that you can use these together to help push each other's boundaries and grow as individuals. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I also don't think it matters when we talk about it in this usage that you sell what you create, or that you're a big-time author, or that any of that stuff becomes a full-time gig. It's not about changing what you do for a living. It's about changing yourself. And I know you may hear me say finding myself and changing yourself, and I use these terms seemingly interchangeably, even though one may sound like the opposite of the other. But if you get deep enough into these practices, what you'll find is that these two things are one and the same. That change is how you find yourself. And so I happily invite everyone on an adventure of change into your own mindscape. Art, music, writing, role-playing, journaling, whatever your method. Even hardcore occult practices. Dive in, then come back, then cultivate the rewards of your experience. I hope you enjoyed my quick dive into creativity and the occult, at least how it affected me in life. And until next time, safe travels.